Hey everybody, my name's Mike and you're watching another video from my website, Selfreliantliving.us.
And my name is Kyle and I'm going to help you guys kind of go through the process of reloading. Today we will be doing 9mm. And first of all, we're going to talk about a few things about everything that you're going to need. The most obvious thing is you're going to need the brass casing for whatever caliber you decide to reload. Now these can be purchased at your local gun store, or you can police brass, whether it be at an indoor gun range or an outside gun range. If you reload, it's very important that you pick up your own brass, and if a lot of times you can go to other ranges and there's going to be brass there for you to pick up too that people just disregard.
A lot cheaper that way to get your own.
Absolutely. After we do the brass, we want to do some primers. You have to have primers. For the 9mm, we want a small pistol primer.
And then we're also going to need a powder, some type of gunpowder, which we're going to go over more here in a second, along with everything else, and bullets. So we got some 9mm 115 grain bullets that we're going to be putting in our brass. And I guess the final thing you need would be a reloader.
And right here we have is a Dillon press. The model RL550 is what we're going to be using today. So we'll get started. Okay, the first thing that we're going to look at is our brass. A lot of times whenever you pick up your own brass, it needs to be cleaned. As you can see here in my hand, it's very dirty. It's grimy, it has some dirt in it. If you're picking it up out of the range, it's going to have dirt inside the casing. So what you need to do then is you need to get a tumbler, as we have here, unscrew it, take it in, and you dump your dirty brass all over in there, and you can put quite a few in there. About 500-600 rounds for 9mm. Once you have it all in there, there is a cleaning lube that you do want to add. You just tighten that down, you turn that on and let it run for about an hour. When it is all done, you have nice shiny brass that looks like that. And if you look at both of them, you can tell there's a pretty good difference between the brass that has been cleaned and the brass that isn't.
Alright, so being a very basic video about reloading, there's tons of options as far as like what you can get for gunpowder, what you can get for bullets, what you can get for primers. We use the Winchester primers here, and there are a couple different types. These are small pistol, and these are for small rifle loads. Today we're doing 9mm, so we're going to be using the small pistol ones. They also have large pistol primers, and those would be for like the 45 calibers and some of the bigger calibers. So really you just got to make sure that you match the primer to the type of brass you have. If you have 9mm, which is going to take a small primer, you're going to get the small pistol primers. So we're going to go ahead and start this process of getting everything prepared as we're talking to you about the different types of primers and powder and bullets that we use. To prep your primers, basically they come in little containers like this, and we have a set of brass discs here. We're going to flip the primers over, put them on top, set this brass piece on top here, and that's going to enable us to flip it one more time. So now we have primers upright the way that we want them for the most part. And we're going to use this tool off of the reloader, and we're just going to start sucking up these primers here, and come down just like this. Now you want to make sure your primers are the correct way, so these we're going to have to invert it and get them set up the same way again. And we'll just go through and just start loading this up with primers. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the gunpowder. With everything, there's so many selections and so many options out there. Starting off, I just go with what I know. This is what Kyle uses, so this is what I'll end up purchasing myself. This is a Hodgkin tight group. It comes about 15 to 20, 23 bucks for a container. A container like this will do probably 1,000 bullets, depending on what caliber and what grain you're loading. But I like this because it's really dummy. You have 45 ACP, or in this example we're using a 9mm, and we're using a 150 grain bullet. So the charge is going to be 4.8 grain, and that's the amount that's actually going to drop into each bullet as we reload it. So this is the powder that we use, Hodgkin tight group, and like I said, you can get that. Things like primers and this, you may be able to order online. We pick them up at a local supplier, and it just makes it easy to go up there and run up there and grab what we need. So that's primers, along with the gunpowder and the bullets. These are, like I said, 115 grain, 9mm bullets. We get them from Extreme Bullets is the company. I think it's extremebullets.com. You can get them 250, 500 count. We order them boxes at a time. They're really nice, very good consistency, great reviews online. And that's what we'll be using to reload our 9mm brass.
Okay, we are back and now we're going to take a quick look at the dies that you can use. This is set up for a 9mm, that's what the die is. As you can see over here, we have 45, 380, and 40 caliber dies set up and ready to go. Anytime you change over your caliber of bullet, you're going to have to pull this all out and replace it with the correct caliber. Again, this is a Dillon RL550 model. Okay, if you remember this little piece right here, if this is what we were picking our primers up with, we're going to go ahead and dump our primers into the machine right now. Now what you want to do is you want to tip it upside down. This little pin here is going to keep it from falling out. Once you have it up above here into this little hole, you just pull the pin and you let it go out. And sometimes there's one or two that will stick up there that you really kind of just got to jab down there. And see there, a couple went down. Just make sure that they're all out before you pull that out. And that will feed your primers into the press. You just want to go ahead and put that up there. That way whenever you do get low on primers, that will go down and it'll let you know whenever you are out, which is very important. Right here we have our brass casing. As you can see, it has a spent primer in it. What we're going to do is we're going to seat it into the first slot. You can see it's nice and flat there. First stage, what this is going to do is it's going to eject that old primer. It's also going to feed a new primer. You can see it right there. And you always want to make sure that that red die is facing up. You don't want the flat side facing up, or else it does run a possibility of going off. Once you get the primer in there, you want to push forward on your lever. This will seed the primer inside. And then what we want to do, just move it to the next stage and go ahead and feed another casing into the first stage. Now this second stage, what's going to happen is we're going to lift it up and it's going to come up right here and it's going to drop the powder in. You can take a look inside there, and that's I believe it was 4.5 or 4.8 grains, and it will drop that consistently each and every time. Every time you do move your stage, you always want to make sure that you have a powder charge in there. You want to make sure that you also didn't double charge it by doing it twice. We're now on our third stage. In our third stage, we want to go ahead and put that bullet right on top and let it sit like so. And then we'll go ahead and raise it up. And that's just going to press that bullet right in there. And it's a solid fit now. That bullet's not coming out. However, we're not quite done. The next stage and the final stage will actually crimp the bullet in there, which will complete it, and we'll start the cycle all over again. It's very important that you take your time and kind of watch the stages as you go along. It's real easy to miss something, end up having a malfunction. There's our first completed bullet for the night. You can see the new primer that's in there. Once you have your bullet made, just get a little piece like that, a jig, drop it in there, make sure that it's level, it's not hanging too far down or it's not too far up. Make sure it's flat up on top and make sure you got primer in there. There's our first completed bullet. Okay, we're going to review this process one more time and just kind of go over it, make sure that we got everything down, make sure that we're doing it right. I'm going to slow it down a little bit this time and give you guys a couple more things to look at, a couple more things to kind of think about whenever you do this on your own. Again, we got the first stage here. We're going to go all the way up, and that's going to actually eject that old primer. And again, that new primer is coming through here with this feed system. One of the things you want to watch for is to make sure that it is not flipped and to make sure that the primer did feed. Now, whenever you come back down, the lever actually stops straight up and down like that. You want to push it all the way back, and that's what's going to seed that primer inside that casing. It's very important that you do that. Now, as you move this over, we are moving into step 2. It's very important that you remember you got to come all the way back to step 1 with your brand new casing and start from scratch again. All the way down. Make sure you got a primer in there and it's facing the right way. Once that is down, you push forward again to seed that primer. Then you go on to step 3 and 2 and back to 1. Step 3 will get a bullet. Step 2 will get a powder charge, and step 1 we'll get that primer ejected and have a new one inserted. Again, pushing forward, make sure that primer is seated in there nice and tight. And our first bullet is now on stage 4, which will crimp the bullet down in there. Stage 3 gets a bullet. Stage 2 gets powder. Stage 1 gets that primer ejected and a new one put in there. And nice and seated. There we go again, another completed bullet.
We start the process all back over. Alright, so that's just about the basics of it, just a few steps and a few items that you need to reload. This video is not meant as an advanced class for reloading, it's just the basics. So if you've never done this before, if you decide you're getting into guns and you think you're going to go out and shoot, start saving your brass now. If you go to a gun range and rent a gun, save that brass and pick up all that you can, because if you want to get into this, it definitely saves you money. Basic reloader like the one we were using, a little over $500. Plus you have the hopper and of course your initial bullets and gunpowder and primer purchases. But it will save you money in the long run if you do decide to do this. Hopefully this video piqued your interest a little bit, and it's something that there are lots of videos out there. So if you want to go on and look at more reviews on different types of gunpowder, you'll be able to find that. Different reviews on other types of presses other than the Dillon here. You'll be able to find that all on YouTube as well. But we hope you enjoyed this video, and like I said, hopefully it sparked your interest, and reloading is something that you might want to get into.